From the Pep Radio Newsroom, these are the stories we are covering at this hour. WHTM is reporting that local municipalities have a steady role in funding libraries on a yearly basis. It's no different for the Lancaster Public Library. Two municipalities are out on giving for 2025. If we don't get government funding, it will hurt us, and eventually it will hurt the community, Lisa Holland, the executive director for the library, said. Manor and East Hempfield townships are pulling their funding after the library was set to host a drag queen story hour back in March. Because this issue has kind of raised itself to the surface and has been controversial, and there's people on both sides of the issue, we would just rather not delve into the issue, Manor Township Manager Ryan Stohecker said in October. The library didn't want to discuss the drag queen story hour. Manor cut $10,000 and East Hempfield is holding off on its over $26,000 donation for next year. Around 30% of the library's budget is made up of government funding, which includes state, county, and municipalities. The two townships not donating won't put the library under. Community donations during Extra Give will help that donation gap. The library had 1,270 donors from the fundraiser Extra Give and raised $133,075 in the 24-hour period. Both are records for the library. The library ranked third in number of donors and ninth in money received. There were 444 organizations eligible to donate to as part of the Extra Give fundraiser. Manor and East Hempfield townships have said they will reconsider funding next year when preparing their budgets. In other news, WTAJ is reporting that two Pennsylvania senators have announced that they'll be reintroducing legislation soon to help bridge the gap in existing laws to help victims who have been sexually exploited. Senators Dan Laughlin and Chris Dush said that the legislation will work to update safe harbor laws. They said that current legislation leaves gaps regarding the protection and support of minors who have been victims. We need to change how the law treats children who have been sexually exploited and implement provisions that seek to reverse the long-term impact on victims of sexual exploitation and sex trafficking, Laughlin said. Minors should not be charged with prostitution. These children should be recognized as victims and provided with the necessary support services to help them recover from their exploitation. The legislation would cover all criminal offenses related to the sexual exploitation of children, not just in the cases of specific crimes. They hope that the broader coverage will allow all victims to receive assistance and protection. Per the legislation, all Pennsylvania agencies would help to improve coordination and response efforts, as well as help to identify and assist exploited children. And finally, we have this story from the Pitt News. For students like Zemer Parr, Donald Trump's victory presents a potentially existential problem. I'd rather not become illegal in the eyes of the United States government, Parr, who is the communications assistant for the Rainbow Alliance at Pitt, had to say. After the 2024 election, transgender and non-binary students at Pitt and community members across the city are reckoning with what a second Trump administration means for them. Throughout the election cycle, the Trump campaign and Republican groups spent over $21 million on anti-trans advertisements. Earlier this year, Trump said he wanted to pass an executive order banning gender-affirming care and restrict trans athletes by rolling back Biden-era Title IX protections. Parr, a junior digital narrative and interactive design and communications major, said they felt numb following Trump's victory on November 5th. That might be because mentally, that's where I'd been at for a pretty long time, Parr said. I was upset, of course, but I heard a lot of other people crying about it, being really upset about it, and I just kind of didn't feel that much, or at least not outwardly. Nearly 1 month later, Parr said they are still in a state of disbelief. One of their biggest concerns is that Project 2025 will be implemented, a thought they find very terrifying. Project 2025 proposes a plan to decrease protections for transgender individuals under federal law and calls for the ban on transgender people in the military to be reinstated. I'd like for trans healthcare to not be obliterated before my eyes, especially because I'm still in the process of trying to go on hormone therapy, and I'd hate for that to just be taken away, Parr said. To learn more about any of the stories we covered, turn to the PEP Radio page on the Pennsylvania Equality Project's website at paequality.com. Be sure to download the Live 365 app to take PEP Radio with you wherever you go. And if you are watching these newscasts through our YouTube channel, be sure to subscribe. That's the news at this hour. Now back to more programming here on PEP Radio.